I now hand the conference over to Ms. Amisha Munwar, Head of Investor Relations at Mindtree. Thank you, and over to you, Ms. Munwar.
Thank you, Janice. A very warm welcome to this conference call to discuss the financial results for the fourth quarter and the year ended March 31st, 2021. Trust all of you and your loved ones are safe and in good health. Today on the call we have with us Mr. Debashish Chatterjee, Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director, Mindtree, Mr. Venu Lambu, Executive Director and President, Global Markets, Mindtree, Mr. Dayapatra Nevatia, Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer, Mindtree, and Mr. Vinit Teredesai, Chief Financial Officer, Mindtree. We will begin with a brief overview of the company's Q4 performance, after which we will have the floor open for Q&A. The webcast will be listen-only mode, but you can post questions over there. We will take the webcast questions once we complete the questions to the conference call mode. Please note that this call is meant only for the analysts and investors. In case there is anyone from the media fraternity, request you all to please disconnect as we concluded the media briefing in the evening. Before I hand over, let me begin with a safe harbor statement. During the call, we could make forward-looking statements. These statements are considering the environment we see as of today and obviously carry a risk in terms of uncertainty, because of which the actual results could be different as outlined in the quarterly fact sheet uploaded on our website. We do not undertake to update those statements periodically. With this, I pass it on to Debashish for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Amisha. Good evening and good morning to everyone on the call. Trust you and your loved ones are safe and doing well. As we close FY21, we are fully aware that the year presented unprecedented challenges that none of us could have ever anticipated. However, all of us have risen to the occasion and demonstrated extreme resilience and adaptability. I am very proud of how we at Mindtree have overcome every challenge to be there for our clients and Mindtree minds when they needed us the most. As the market environment continues to be dynamic with promising news of the COVID-19 vaccination drive on one side and the risk of resurgence of infection on the other, we are monitoring the situation carefully. The Q4 results of $288.2 billion in revenue and 21.9% EBITDA margin confirms the strength and resilience of our business model and the relevance of our market offerings. We had defined a clear path for profitable growth, and we continue to execute the 4x4x4 vision, focusing on building deeper strategic relationships with our clients, seamless secure delivery, robust partner ecosystem, strategic investments in capabilities, and constantly future-ready talent. The business rebound in FY21, despite significant challenges and ongoing uncertainty across industries, is a testament to our proactiveness and agility, along with the client confidence we have earned. During the year, we were able to construct and win many first-of-a-kind engagements for Mindtree, both from publicity and from tenure perspectives. Our investments in building the strength of our frontline sales team, along with the solutioning and delivery teams, have helped us immensely in our ability to deliver transformational projects at scale. With this, let me provide some more details from Q4 and full year perspectives. Continuing our sequential growth momentum, in Q4 we delivered US revenue growth of 5.2%, making it our second consecutive quarter of 5% plus growth. Our quarterly revenue of $288.2 million is also the highest ever revenue for a quarter. After providing the wage hikes across the organization effective Jan 1st, our EBITDA for the quarter was 21.9%. For the full year, revenue is at $1076.5 million, and EBITDA is at 20.8%, which is a 680 basis points improvement from last year. We ended the full year with a healthy order book of nearly $1.48 billion, representing year-on-year growth of 12.3%. For the last quarter, amongst industry segments, communications, media and technology grew 4.1%. Retail, CPG and manufacturing grew 8.6%. Banking, financial and insurance declined 1.1%. And travel, transportation and hospitality grew 16.1% sequentially. For the full year FY21, communications, media and technology grew 20.7%. Retail, CPG and manufacturing grew 0.6%, while others showed degrowth. Among the geographies for the quarter, North America contributed 76.6%. Continental Europe, UK and Ireland together contributed 15.7%. APAC and Middle East contributed 7.7%. Our focus and investments in Europe have begun to yield results. Continental Europe, UK and Ireland together grew 8% sequentially. The revenue contribution from our service lines for the quarter were customer success at 38.6%, data and intelligence at 16%, cloud at 19.4%, and enterprise IT at 26%. The need of our clients is to maximize efficiency as well as leverage disruptive technologies and trends for enduring success. And we are partnering with many of them on their transformation journey. Let me touch upon a few examples of deal wins in the past quarter. We signed a multi-year engagement with a global leader in design and manufacturing of household appliances to transform their online retail experiences end-to-end. We have been chosen as a strategic partner by a leading global travel software and technology company to modernize their passenger reservation platform and accelerate their cloud transformation journey. We have been selected by a leading bank to provide Salesforce transformation services across multiple geographies for their asset management division. A robust delivery backbone and disciplined execution have been key to our success. Enterprises across sectors are increasing focus on leveraging data, cloud, and disruptive technologies to thrive in the new normal, while ensuring their business IT foundation is resilient, efficient, and agile. Let me share details of a few engagements that we delivered during the quarter. A large multinational paints company wanted to modernize their mobile application, which lets users visualize their walls in different shades in real time, with a focus on user experience and scalability. We re-engineered their application ground up, leveraging augmented reality. Our application on the Google Play Store received all-time high rating and enabled 40% growth in the user base. A large technology giant wanted to optimize their technology documentation platform, which ran on legacy technology. We partnered with them to modernize the platform, leveraging Azure solutions, while introducing new features to enhance collaboration. As a result, site performance improved significantly with zero downtime. Healthcare and humanitarian organizations have been at the forefront of our economy and physical recovery through the pandemic, and efficiency and time to market is critical for them. We are proud of our work with an American humanitarian organization where we implemented a cloud-based automated solution across more than 100 collection sites nationwide, helping them achieve more than 98% reduction in non-conformance and significant dollar savings per year. For a large American credit reporting agency who wanted to modernize a business-critical user engagement platform, we helped in migration to Google Cloud Platform, along with decommissioning their on-premise infrastructure. I would also like to recap on a few milestones achieved during the year. We rolled out our simple and robust strategy of 4x4x4 and have started executing on it. We returned to broad-based profitable growth, keeping focus on long-term annuity deals. We built a strong and experienced leadership team across the organization. We successfully set up and scaled our strategic partnerships with key hyperscalers and industry leaders such as Microsoft Azure, Databricks, ServiceNow, and Google Cloud Platform, and many more. We simplified and streamlined our operational processes and delivery, enabling us to deliver continued margin improvement. We have ensured the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of our Mindtree Minds with several interventions and assistance programs. In addition, we are rolling out a comprehensive COVID-19 vaccination plan in India for all Mindtree Minds and their families. We garnered some significant analyst recognition, such as Mindtree recognized as a leader in the ISG Provider Lens Salesforce Ecosystem Partners 2021 reports for Salesforce implementation, integration, and managed application services for large enterprises across the US. And as a leader in the ISG Provider Lens Mainframe Services and Solutions 2021 in the US. As a major contender in the Everest PEAK Matrix Assessment 2021 for software product engineering services. Our employee value propositions have shown consistent improvement across the board, reflecting in improved utilization, better offshoring, and continued reduction in attrition. I take this opportunity to appreciate and thank the leadership team and all Mindtree Minds for their collaborative spirit and unrelenting dedication. People-friendly policies, higher standards of corporate governance, along with promotion of diversity and inclusion, have always been at the forefront for Mindtree, which has been reaffirmed by the recognitions won during the quarter. First place in Workforce Planning and Staffing Solutions category in the People First ACE Awards presented by National HRD Network. Winner of the Golden Peacock National Award 2020 for Corporate Social Responsibility. Second runner-up position in the Best Employer for Women Large category by the Associated Chambers for Commerce and Industries of India, which is ASSOCHAM. Winner in the Excellence in Employee Welfare Initiative by the BW Business World HR Excellence Award 2021. With encouraging demand traction and our deal wins, we have accelerated the process of talent acquisition, both campus and lateral, to twice the earlier volumes, leveraging online assessment tools, a new referral platform, and our close-knit partner ecosystem. Learning enthusiasm amongst the Mindtree Minds continued with an approximately 50% increase in learning hours year over year on virtual platforms. We ended Q4 with over 23,800 Mindtree Minds, including a net addition of more than 1,600 Minds. With continued focus on employee engagement initiatives, our attrition dropped to 12.1% on an LTM basis for the quarter from 12.5% in Q3. I would now like to turn it over to Vinit to walk you through our Q4 and full year financial highlights. Vinit?
Thank you, Rishi. Good evening, good morning to everyone on the call. In an extremely challenging year, our teams rose to the occasion. Our performance has been consistent and robust. We delivered a broad-based revenue growth of 5.2% quarter-on-quarter and 3.5% year-on-year in the dollar terms. Ex-travel and hospitality vertical, our revenue growth was 8.1% and overall revenue growth declined by 1.1% for the full year. Our reported EBITDA margin for the quarter is at 21.9% compared to 23.1% in Q3. For the full year, it is at 20.8% as compared to 14% in FY20. The drop of 120 basis points in EBITDA margin versus the prior quarter was primarily driven due to an impact of 240 basis points from our planned wage hike, FX headwinds of 50 basis points, and a tailwind of 170 basis points from the revenue growth and operational efficiency. The effective tax rate for the quarter is 24.3% as compared to 26.6% in Q3, and for the full year, it is at 25.9%. Net forex gain for the quarter is $2.3 million. Profit after tax margins for the quarter is at 15% as compared to 16.1% in Q3. PAT in absolute terms is $43.3 million, resulting in an earnings per share of 19 rupees 20 paise for the quarter as compared to 19 rupees 80 paise in Q3. For the full year, profit after tax margin is 13.9%, an increase of 580 basis points compared to FY20, and EPS for the full year is at 67.4, an increase of 76% compared to FY20. Our continued efforts in collections during the quarter led to the reduction of DSO by 1 day. For the quarter, the DSO stands at 60 days. EBITDA to operating cash flow is at 76.8% for the quarter and 120.5% for the full year. Free cash flow to EBITDA is at 68.5% for the quarter and 116.4% for the full year. Our utilization for the quarter is at 84.3% from 83.1% in Q3. Our contractual pricing for the quarter remains stable. Our order book for the quarter increased 20% sequentially and is at $375 million for Q4. As of 31st March, our cash flow hedges are at $996 million. Hedges on balance sheet are at $132 million and options at $18 million. The AAA rating upgrade from India Ratings last month reaffirms our commitment to delivering stakeholder value based on strong operational principles. Our approach is to create value for all our stakeholders by balancing investment needs and return to stakeholders. The Board of Directors have recommended a final dividend of 175%, that is 17 rupees 50 paise per equity share of par value 10 rupees each. After including the interim dividend of 7.5 rupees per share, the aggregate dividend for the fiscal 2021 amounts to 25 rupees per share. ESG has been always a focus for Mindtree and reinforced in the mission statement. Mindtree leads across dimensions in ESG scores through conscientious efforts over the years. We focus on themes such as energy efficiency, supporting education, disability, growing digital talent globally, and a diverse and inclusive board. Our Investor Day annual report and sustainability report will carry the operating KRAs for FY21. With continued positive impact on society, we undertake a holistic approach to refine the ESG and assign measurable impact metrics over the next few quarters. As a part of strategy refresh and focus areas, we will be reporting industry vertical, healthcare and realignment of few clients across industry verticals starting from Q1 of FY22. I now hand over to DC to cover on demand and outlook.
Thank you, Vinit. With our sustained growth momentum, we are confident about the opportunities ahead and the outlook for FY22. Clients appreciate the value that we create and recognize our ability to deliver transformational engagements. Our pipeline continues to be robust with a good mix of annuity deals. We continue to cross-sell and upsell within and across our client base, growing our order book 20% sequentially to $375 million. Being mindful of the uncertainty introduced by the pandemic, we are geared up to respond to the increased opportunities and business traction. It is our endeavor to deliver double-digit growth in FY22 while sustaining EBITDA at 20% plus levels. I now pass this back to the operator to open up to questions. Operator.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handset while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Sudheer Guntupalli from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for giving me this opportunity and congrats on a good set of numbers. BC, quarterly revenue run rate in BFSI vertical has stagnated in the $50 million run rate for almost 4 years now, even before you joined. This is a little surprising given this vertical is on the forefront of digital adoption and we actually take pride in the strength of our offerings in this area. So any structural problem that you had identified, be it in the go-to-market strategy, so on and so forth, which might be driving this revenue stagnancy, and any steps you are taking to kind of address this issue?
Well, I think it's not. There has been growth in BFSI from time to time, but specifically for this particular quarter, we were expecting certain closures, which has not happened, which have been pushed to Q1. And apart from that, the Q4 weakness was a bit cyclical as well. As the budgets are getting firmed up, we do anticipate good momentum across our clients, and especially in the areas of cloud and data security and DevOps. We are also seeing good traction in mid-tier banks. We are very hopeful that BFSI will be coming back in the coming quarters, especially given the fact that we are some of the deals that we are very close to closing, they will start ramping up as we go along. I don't think there is any structural deficiency per se, but it all depends on the portfolio of clients that you have been having, and as we go along, I think our vision is to add more and more strategic clients. So as that happens, things will change. That's what we hope. Venu, do you want to add any additional color?
No, DC. I think one thing is we are very focused is about getting the modest growth back in the subsequent quarters. But you're right, there are no structural issues. It's just getting the account mix right.
Sure. Thanks. And my second question is, in FY21, overall the order book increased 12% odd. And even when we were talking about at the analyst day earlier, you're confident that Mindtree will be delivering industry-leading growth. Given the low base in FY21 for many companies, definition of industry-leading can be as high as, let's say, high teens kind of revenue growth. So I'm just trying to understand the bridge between the 12% increase in order book and high teens sort of a revenue growth expectation. Is that driven by the deal pipeline you are looking at for the first and possibly second quarter?
Venu, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. So there are two aspects to that, Sudhir. Firstly, yes, the order books that you did not just for this quarter, even the previous quarter, would start yielding revenue as we complete the transition and so on. So that's one factor which will contribute to the industry-leading double-digit growth that DC mentioned. The second is, yes, there are, our pipeline continues to be robust. We have a very strong pipeline, and we're looking for some good closures, that will add up, to the incremental revenue addition for the year. So it's a combination of both, the orders that booked during the year as well as the new deals that is going to come up in the quarters.
Sure, sir. And just one question to Vineet. Effort composition has remained more or less stable from the previous quarter to this quarter. So little curious on why this is the case, as travel has not yet started, and the incremental growth for this quarter should have ideally ramped up offshore like it happened for other companies which reported so far.
I'm sorry, Sudhir, can you repeat the question? I couldn't get you on the first part.
Yeah. So the effort mix, if you see, it has remained more or less stable on a sequential basis. So since travel has not yet started, intuitively we would have expected the incremental growth for this quarter to largely ramp up offshore, like it happened for other companies. So just trying to understand why has it remained largely stable from previous quarter to this quarter?
No, I think so. The mix of the demand and how we have engaged right now, there has not been any material change. As you rightly said, the travel has not yet picked up, so it has remained pretty much on the same lines. So I don't think so there is any structural change that has happened in this particular quarter.
No, Vineet. My question is, if travel has not yet started, so the incremental growth should have largely ramped up offshore. Thereby, ideally, there should have been a little bit of a shift towards offshore, which is what other companies are reporting. But in your case, that did not happen. So I'm just trying to understand.
If I can answer, this is again portfolio mix that you have the clients. I mean, there are a lot of transformational deals that we have commenced in the last 2 quarters, and some of these transformations have to be, you need to have folks at on-site also. So it depends on the kind of engagements we have. So I don't think there has been a significant jump to offshore in Q3 itself. If you go back to the last quarter metrics, there has been a significant jump in Q3. So I think what you are talking about was already achieved in Q3. And what you see right now is just to sustain the transformational engagement that we have started. And also, so there is also another component which you should know is we started the nearshore center in Poland. So those things also need to be considered.
Sure, Desi, understood. Thanks. That's it from my side, and all the best.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, a reminder to the participants, please limit your question to one per participant only. You may come back in the question queue if you have a follow-up. The next question is from the line of Vibhor Singhal from PhillipCapital. Please go ahead.
Hi. Good evening, sir. Thanks for taking my question. And congrats on a very strong end to a difficult year that we all have seen. Just my question is on the deal flow number. We saw the deal flow for the quarter at a decent 20% up sequentially. But on a Y-on-Y terms, I think we still kind of fell a bit short. And also, I think as we look to chase industry-leading growth next year, as you mentioned, the deal flow appears to be a little bit on the softer side. I agree. I guess you mentioned that some of the deals that you were expecting in Q4 were not able to close. So how does the overall deal pipeline look like, and how can we actually basically look at this deal flow number grow in the coming quarters?
Yes, thank you, Vibhor. I think the way to look at it is, Vibhor, look at the full year. Like if you look at the overall order book right now, it's 1.4 billion, and it's a 12% growth over the last year. I mean, there are always cyclical things in terms of specific client behaviors where some closures happen in this quarter, some will happen in the next quarter. But what we care about is overall. For the full year, we are very confident. We are very happy with the order book that we have closed. As far as pipeline is concerned, I can only say that the pipeline in the company, the deal pipeline has never been so high as it is right now. In fact, the last 2 quarters, we have been having the highest deal pipeline. So given the very strong pipeline and given the full year order book that we have closed, we are very confident that the momentum that we have gathered in the last 2 quarters with a 5% plus sequential in 2 consecutive quarters, we are very confident that we should be able to continue with that momentum. And we have enough deals to fall back on. I don't know, Venu, you want to add any additional color?
Just one specific point is that one is the growth in terms of the actual order booking. The other dimension is also to look at the quality of the deal. The quality of the deal, which has a larger duration than we used to have earlier, whether it is the longer duration transformation projects or multi-year engagements. So that also helps us to get the accelerated growth. So one is the net increase, the other is also the quality aspect.
Sure. Thanks for that. Vineet, just if I was just want to squeeze in one question to Vineet. You mentioned that we are looking at EBITDA margins of 20% plus going ahead. So just wanted to pick your brain on basically what is our take on the salary hike for FY22? I mean, is it going to be staggered or probably slightly back-ended? And taking that into account and that utilization is already at 84%, do you see multiple headwinds to the margins and probably impacting us to basically making it difficult for us to achieve that 20% kind of a number?
See, we have just now rolled out and completed our first increment cycle. We have planned and factored in certain amount of selective increment that we will be needing to do as a part and parcel of our FY22 story. That has been factored in when I say that we'll be able to sustain the 20% plus EBITDA margin. We have not yet made a decision in terms of when and how we will be doing that increment, but there is definitely a certain amount of planning that is being already factored in.
And take all that taken into account, margins will still be ahead of 20%, is what you maintain.
The EBITDA margin that EBITDA margin of 20% is something we are still confident of sustaining and managing.
Sure. Thank you so much for taking my questions, gentlemen, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhishek Siddharkar from Elara Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity and congrats on solid execution. My question is on the client metric. Now, if I see the year-on-year growth movement in in top 2 to 5 and 6 to 10 clients, and as well as the quarter-on-quarter growth, there seems to be that 2 to 5 and 6 to 10 is actually decelerating. Now, one of the reasons could have been that travel customers could be part of top 10 or maybe top 20, and one of the reasons could be that. But the travel actually growth is accelerating. I mean, the year-on-year decline is decelerating. So how should we understand the mix here? That is first question. And the second question is on margins. Now, the improvement in 21, we saw almost 300 basis points of tailwind coming from lower travel cost. How much of that is sustainable or could come back in 22? If you can just answer that. Thank you for taking my question.
Okay, so Abhishek, let me just talk about the client metrics. And obviously, the client metrics, given the fact that we had quite a few travel clients within our top 20, it does look a little skewed. So let's try to explain to you in a slightly different way. If I take my top client has grown 29% year over year. And if I take the 2 to 10, the next set of clients, there is a degrowth. But if I consider the travel and hospitality clients, if I take them out, then there is a growth of 28% within the top 2 to 10. If I just leave aside 2 travel clients, same way, if I just look at take the top client and then take the 2 to 20, the next set of clients, there is a degrowth for the year over year. But again, if I just take out 3 travel clients, we have a growth of 18% year over year. So the client metric, essentially what I'm trying to say is that the travel growth is come back in some areas. There are green shoots, but the base has shrunk significantly from where it used to be pre-COVID. So that will take, our expectation is that at least a couple of more quarters to kind of say that we are back on the growth. It may take a little longer as well because it's not within our controls. But what we can assure you is that if I look at the remaining part of the portfolio, our vision of looking at the strategic clients, selling into the cross-selling and upselling into the strategic clients and growing those portfolios, that strategy is working out extremely well. So that's what I would say in terms of client metrics, how we should look at. I think overall, the entire decline of travel, we have been able to manage through growth in the other accounts very well. And, that's a testimony of 2 quarters of 5+% of sequential growth, 2 consecutive quarters. In terms of margin, yes, you are right. I mean, the travel has kind of reduced, and but there is there has been also a significant program that we launched almost 18 months back in terms of how do you look at your overall margin improvement. So I would say that even when travel comes back, I'm not sure whether it will come back fully the way it was earlier. And there are enough checks and balances and controls we have put into a very rigorous process where we will be, tracking. We will always look at improving the margin as we go along. I don't know, Dayapatra, do you want to add any color on the margin?
Sure, DC. So basically, like you rightly said, travel level even in the new normal. And a few quarters back, the operational efficiency program that we started with has been delivering good results for us, and that's what is reflected in the margin growth for us. And we are very confident of continuing the focus on operational efficiency, plus the growth that we are expecting next year. Both put together will ensure that we continue with 20% margin trajectory.
That's helpful. And just one follow-up, if I may. Sir, you've guided in your press release for a double-digit growth. Now, with the exit rate that we have and the booking number that we are talking of, and the fact that, large companies are providing a number to the guidance, what is that is preventing you from putting a number for next year? I mean, are you seeing any risk, or there is some unknowns that you want to kind of bake into the numbers? Thank you for taking my question.
No, I think we normally don't provide numbers, but at least we are telling you we are very confident of doing a double-digit growth. We are pretty bullish about that at this point of time.
Thank you for taking my question, sir, and best wishes for 22.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Manik Taneja from JM Financial. Please go ahead.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, thank you for the opportunity. Just wanted to pick your brains around a couple of industry trends. Number one thing is that, are you seeing clients becoming much more comfortable with offshore delivery? And that's something that's obvious from the metrics. But are customers much more open to higher billing rates for offshore delivery with some overlap in US working time? That's question number one. The second thing is that we've been on this journey of client rationalization. Just wanted to understand where are we in that journey. Thank you.
You're actually breaking up a little. Can you please repeat that?
The second question or question number one?
If you got the first question.
I got it. Yeah, I got it, DC. I think the first question, just for DC's benefit as well, I think it was, are we seeing any increase in the billing rate in offshore, right? Look, I think we need to appreciate that most of the world economies are still under significant stress, right? So while a lot of our customers are increasing the spend on the digital transformation, they need to cut the spend on the traditional IT services as well. So, I think, if, and they're not shying away from spending more and more to accelerate the digital transformation. So the basket size of the spend is increasing, but not necessarily the individual billing rate. But having said that, there are some specific skill sets, where, customers are showing a bit of willingness to pay, a couple of dollars extra for that. But in general, it's not a trend that we see. In general, the points on, giving a cost competitive solution, giving solution which accelerates the time to market, those are bigger agenda, especially the time to market is a bigger agenda, is what I see. So hence, there is no specific trend to conclude that there is going to be an increase in billing rate at the moment. It's going to be steady and stable though.
Sure.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Venu said, I think there are also quite a few engagements where we are able to look at more of outcome-based rather than just pure T&M kind of a scenario. So that also is something that we need to take into account. And I think your second question was in terms of tail account rationalization. I think this is something that we talked about, long time back, that we want to focus on a few set of strategic clients and make sure that we can upsell and cross-selling to those clients and build deeper relationship with those clients. And that has been a strategy that we adopted. And keeping that strategy in mind, we have also come out with this 4x4x4, where we have these 4 service lines which we felt are very relevant for digital transformation at this point of time. So overall, the program is going on well. It did kind of slow down during the pandemic because we did not want clients to be inconvenienced during the pandemic. But our view is that we don't want to rationalize the long tail at the inconvenience of a client. We want to make it as smooth as possible. And the second thing is, as we rationalize the tail, we also don't want to have any impact from revenue from our perspective. So keeping all those things in mind, I think it's almost 25 to 30% of the original, of the tail, of the original number of clients, which is a tail, which we have already rationalized. So what you see right now, we are adding quite a few marquee logos, very strategic to our growth, but at the same time, we continue to rationalize. We just to get the numbers, I think we rationalize about 70 clients in terms of this year. So that process will continue as we go along. Does it answer your question, Manik?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you and all the best for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Mohit Jain from Anand Rathi. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. 2 questions. One is on the TCV duration, if you could give some number for FY21 versus FY20. And second is now, of course, no discussion is complete without top client discussion in Mindtree. So in the last 3 quarters, it is going little slower than travel actually in terms of incremental dollars added, which is contrary to the management commentary. So do you think this trend may sustain in FY22 given that we are at a very high base in top client versus travel vertical?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't follow the second part in terms of top client and travel. Can you
Top client is adding in terms of absolute dollars incrementally added. Top client is now growing at par or slower than the travel vertical in the last 2 quarters.
Okay.
So is this something which is to do with the base effect and therefore we should expect this to continue in FY22?
Okay, so I think what you need to understand is, let me answer the second question first before I go to the TCV question. See, if you look at the travel growth that we had in the last quarter, which is double-digit growth for the last 2 quarters, the base is significantly shrunk. So I think there are green shoots and we have a good team. We have not lost any of the clients during the pandemic. So as and when the clients are coming back, we should be also able to do it. But I don't think that has got any specific relation to the top client. But the way I want you to look at this is that our vision is to grow the top client, and we have grown the top client by 29%. But if you look at the overall client concentration of the top client with the overall revenues, last year, Q4, it was at 23%. But if you look at this year, not last year, I'm talking about the previous year, it was around 23%. It jumped up to 30% because of we lost the travel portfolio because of the pandemic. But we closed at around 28%. So we want to grow the top clients. We want to grow the next set of 40 clients. But our belief is the strategy that we have laid out is the top client should continue to grow, but the overall revenue from our concentration perspective should gradually come down as we go along. Does that give you a flavor, Mohit?
Yes, sir. Thank you. And on the TCV tenure?
Yes, see, TCV tenure is, we normally don't talk about it, but I can only tell you that when we talk about TCV, there are deals that we close which are multi-year deals. And when we talk about multi-year deals, there are quite a few deals that we have closed which are 5 years. Some of them 3 years, many of them 5 years deals, transformation deals. So mostly are 3 to 5 years deals.
Okay, and last for Vineet, sir, there is something known as transaction price allocated to remaining performance obligation. So how should we read that number, sir? Does it signify anything related to the longer tenure business that you currently have?
So Vineet? Vineet, you're there?
Yeah, I'm there. Sorry. I couldn't hear, Mohit, your question. Can you repeat it a little bit? Sorry.
Sir, in the financial statements, there's a table which says transaction price allocated to remaining performance obligations. There are numbers year-wise. So 1 to 3 has gone up dramatically, for instance. So does it to do with our longer tenured business that we currently are into?
No, I think so. Yeah, I would say, yeah, okay. I think so. Yes, I'm just looking at that statement. It is to do with that. Yeah.
So that could give us a proxy of how we are moving ahead in the 3 years.
You can look. Yeah, you can look at it in that way.
And it does not by any means signify any liability or something with this performance obligation is not to do with how do we execute with the client, right?
No. You should not read anything beyond that in that.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rishi Jhunjhunwala from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. A couple of questions there. Firstly, on the vertical performance, right? So two verticals. One is the BFSI, where if you really look at it, even travel got hit in 1Q, but has started recovering sequentially. BFSI still remains a big challenge. So just wanted to understand, where are we facing issues within BFSI? And on travel side, if we really look at, say, on a year-on-year performance perspective, especially from profitability side, our margins have gone up by almost 500 basis points on the corporate side, but travel has gone up from 12 percentage point to almost 22 percentage point. And this is despite the fact that travel is down 30-40% year on year. So just wanted to understand whether are there any one-off, reversal of pricing discounts or anything which have led to this significant surge, and as a result, EBITDA margin in travel will normalize in FY22?
Basically, can I take the question?
Yeah, please take it.
Yeah. So, as you know that in the last year when the pandemic did struck, there were a few discounts that were being offered to few customers in the travel segment. Those have now all vanished away, and that's the reason why you're seeing the travel the margins reflecting higher for the travel vertical.
Okay, but are these sustainable? So I'm sorry to interrupt, but are these sustainable or these are reversals which have happened and so margins will normalize a bit lower?
No. That's what I'm saying. Last year the margins were impacted because you gave some discounts. Now those discounts are not there, and we do not anticipate these discounts to return back in the near future. Okay. So we do think that these margins are sustainable and maybe even better as the growth kicks in at some point of time for the travel vertical.
Okay.
Yeah, and Rishi, on the BFSI, we answered that some time back, but still in your benefit, we were anticipating a couple of deals which did not get closed, which got delayed, and we are expecting closure in this quarter. And as the budgets are getting firmed up with our BFSI clients, we see good momentum across the clients within areas of cloud, data security, as well as DevOps. And we are also seeing some good traction in the mid-tier banks. So we are expecting that BFSI also will revive in the coming quarters.
Fair enough. Just one last, if I can squeeze in. If you really look at your breakdown from a delivery perspective, fixed price revenues have gone from 58% in 4Q last year to almost 72% now for this quarter. So it seems like even large part of the renewals are also getting converted from time and material to fixed price. So just wanted to understand, how are these, negotiations eventually, transpiring from a margin perspective, and are these one of the key drivers for the expansion that you've seen over the past 4 quarters?
Absolutely spot on. I think it is our endeavor to look at how we can convert more and more multi-year annuity deals. And as we do that, I don't think we will ever do anything to make it margin dilutive. That's not the intention over here. But I think our strategy of looking at more and more annuity deals which can give you a multi-year continuity is working out well, and that's what we are focused on.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you, Rishi.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dipesh Mehta from Emkay Global. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. A couple of questions. First about, I think you have covered BFSI in detail, but if you can provide growth outlook across other verticals, particularly TTS. TTS has shown some traction, and I think you earlier alluded about some green shoot. How you expect travel and hospitality to play out in FY22? Second question is for Vinit. Now, if I look, we have given salary hike and we added 1,600 odd employees this quarter. And if I look your employee benefit expenses, it grew only 4% quarter on quarter. So if you can help us understand what explains relatively lower incremental growth in employee benefit expenses, QOQ. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipesh. On the PTH, our view is that when this pandemic struck, this is one vertical which was the most impacted. We almost lost half of the revenues within 2 weeks of time. But the good news is we did not lose any clients. We have tremendous stickiness with the clients. We have been working with them for many years, and we also have built a solid domain expertise in travel and hospitality. So given all these factors, we always knew that as there is an opportunity for PTH to come back, which and if you look at some of the transformation that's happening right now, like for example, contactless is something that is happening big way in TTH, whether it's a hotel, whether it's an airline. And some of those initiatives, some of those transformations, we are participating in those. So I would say these are the early green shoots of recovery within TTH, some discretionary work which is going on. And I don't think it has really come, we cannot say it has come back full steam. But if you ask me about how much time it will take to recover, I don't think we have seen good recovery in the last 2 quarters in terms of green shoot, but we are at least a couple of more quarters away to see the the levels that we want to see in terms of full growth. But our confidence comes with the fact that none of these clients have gone away from us, and all these clients, the relationship that we have, that's very robust, and I think they also will rely on us as they come back. We should be also able to grow along with them.
Yeah, Dipesh, and on your question on the salary hike and the overall cost increase, see, one of the aspect also is to look at the overall growth that has happened. Our growth has been pretty robust. Our utilization continues to remain at a high levels. I mentioned this in one of the past calls that we are stepping up now on hiring. So eventually, this sort of utilization will not be sustained. The utilization will come down in the future quarters. We do intend to maintain a certain portion of bench, which is healthy to cater to our growth in future. And also, there has been in the current quarter, there has been a little bit of a immediate demand that was being catered through subcontractors, and to that extent, there is a slight increase in the subcontractor cost in this quarter. But eventually, I would say it will all even out. Yes, the talent cost is one of the constraints we have, but we will continue. We do have sufficient amount of levers available in our system to manage the headwind that is coming on our way.
No, Vinit, my question was a bit different. Let's say if I look your salary hike and 1,600 odd employee addition, your employee benefit expense would have grown faster. Now, utilization and other lever, what you are indicating, it is revenue implication. But if I look absolute number of employee benefit expenses, that number should have grown. Reflect these two things, right? Hike and addition.
Yeah, and we continue to balance. We have to also look at. We continue to balance our pyramid also. We look at people who are also getting added at a fresher level, and that also helps us in terms of managing our cost.
Is it possible to share some number about, let's say, pyramid 20 versus 21, how it has changed?
I would say in the last year, our intake on our freshers was significantly lower. We have increased that intake in FY21, and we anticipate that intake will be even more stronger in FY22. So we will continue to do that. We'll continue to manage this pyramid and we'll try to manage our cost within the defined parameters to ensure that our margins that what we had claimed for are sustainable.
Sure. And last, I think earlier question was partly answered. RCM and CMT, I think you have not provided some color. How you expect them to play out?
No, RCM and CMT are two verticals where we have been seeing good traction, and the traction continues. We are very bullish on these two verticals.
Thanks for answering.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, a reminder to the participants again, please limit your questions to one per participant only. You may come back in the question queue if you have a follow-up. The next question is from the line of Ashwin Mehta from Ambit Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. One clarification. While it's for a lower base, what led to the doubling of the expenses this quarter? And in terms of subcontracting also, you did mention that these were possibly some opportunistic engagements. So do we think subcontracting will come back to the prior levels, or as we've seen for almost everybody in the industry, subcontracting could be back to the pre-COVID levels again?
Yeah, Ashwin, I lost the first part of your question. I think I missed that. What was the first line?
The first part of the question was that our travel expenses on a quarter-on-quarter basis have almost doubled. So what explains that? And the second one was on subcontracting as to how do you see that trend going forward, whether it comes back to pre-COVID levels or not?
Yeah, I think Vineet, you want to take it?
Yeah, no. So I'll just clarify on the travel expenses. It's mainly the cost that we have incurred for the visa applications that are scheduled to come up in Q1 of FY22.
Okay.
Yeah, and on the subcontracting, I would say that it depends on the specific engagements and the deals and all those things. So, but our goal is not to keep the subcontracting price subcontracting ratio increase too much. So that cost should not be so we expect that over a period of time it will again come back to the extent that we want it to.
Okay. And just a clarification in terms of wage hikes for FY22, is the understanding correct that you are looking at more selective interventions and not a full-scale wage hike in FY22?
Yeah, at this point of time, this is too early. But as Vineet has mentioned earlier, we are kind of keeping a very close eye in terms of what we need to do and when we need to do. But it's in the works. It's very difficult to comment details at this point of time.
Okay. Thanks a lot and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rahul Jain from Dolat Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Most of them have been answered, but and sorry for prodding further into the same topic which has been discussed. So this 12% growth in the TCV, is it also, from a correlation of the kind of growth we are expecting, is it also benefited from the weak growth in FY21, which would have, boosted our overall order backlog because the order book was strong in the beginning of FY21 also. So is that a reason that can further give it fillip from a growth confidence?
Vineet, you want to take it? Venu, go ahead.
Yeah. If I understood correctly, you're essentially saying that the 12%, if I understood your question correctly, the 12% increase on the order book, is that giving us the growth confidence on the FY22? Is that the question?
Yeah, and I'm saying let's assume if we are looking for high, strong double-digit growth, apart from this 12% growth in TCV that we start with this year, we also have some advantage probably coming from the last year order book, given that our revenues were soft in FY21, but we again had a strong order book at the beginning of that year, which probably must be sitting in the order backlog itself.
Oh, yes. Look, as I mentioned in the earlier question as well, it's a combination of both. The orders that you book for this current year, there is a revenue that flows into the next year as well, which is FY22. So that part is pretty much there. Especially those multi-year engagements where you need to do transition, the steady state revenue starts kicking in after 3 or 4 months. So that aspect is there. And the second, the aspect which will contribute to the FY22 growth is the orders that we will book for the in quarter itself as we over the next 2 quarters that we will book. So it's a combination of both because of which we are confident about the double-digit growth for FY22.
Right. And to understand our margin profile or the expected margin profile a little better in FY22, can you just tell us the top 3 headwind and tailwinds? Because despite a very high growth that we anticipate, we are expecting EBITDA margin to sort of stay flat. And of course, we have a lot of saving that has come from the SG&A, which will obviously come back to some degree. So any top 3 headwind, tailwind you want to quantify?
No, I think it's less of a headwind, and I would say we have mentioned this in the past that, we will continue to do our operational efficiency program. But most importantly, now we have reached a stage whereby we want to reinvest a lot of that portion into business to support the future growth. So I would say that the 20% margin, what we are confident of, is a reflection of that. And you will continue to see. It does not mean on quarter you will see that margins dipping down to necessarily 20%. In some quarters, we may continue to deliver higher margins. The headwinds are in form of people cost, and people and talent remains to be one of the headwinds. But at this point of time, we are confident that we have sufficient amount of machinery that is being geared up to tackle this headwind and deliver the growth that we are contemplating. Sorry, DC, I probably...
No, I think the only thing I would say is, some of the costs that went up during the pandemic will come back. So there's no doubt about it. But as Vineet rightly said, we have the machinery in place now, and this is a program that we have been running for almost 6 quarters or more, which gives us the confidence that we have a good hold in terms of our operational metrics. And as Vineet rightly said, our focus right now is how do you reinvest in the business so that we can also continue the growth momentum.
Okay. So basically, you don't see the percentage of sales basis much major movements coming into it, or on an annualized basis, we are on a normalized cost both for the employee as well as SG&A basis, and there would be only very minor swing to that numbers because we are already working on these things for some time now.
Yes, I would say that's what we will continue to strive on and continue to manage our employee cost and other costs in that range.
Perfect. Thank you and best of luck for the time here.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nitin from Investec. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just a quick clarification. We have had maybe an all-time high kind of headcount addition. Just want to clarify this 7% of existing headcount new headcount that's come towards the end of the quarter, and are they higher on the fresher side or lateral side? Just wanted your thoughts on both.
Jayapatra, do you want to take it?
Sure, DC. So it is mix of both freshers and lateral. So as you would have seen that we have a very robust demand and business is growing quite well for us, and that's leading to a lot of hiring in India as well as other geography. Plus, we have also started to do a lot of proactive hiring to meet the future demand. As you know that talent position is quite tough in India right now. Every company is going after the same talent pool for certain skills. And therefore, we want to make sure that we have the right talent when we require them, and hence a lot of proactive hiring is happening. forward, next year also, we will be doubling up our effort in terms of hiring both campus as well as referral.
Sure. And the other part of the question was, have all these people or most of these people come towards the end of the quarter?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, no, I think it's fair to say that all those people came throughout the quarter. I don't think there's any...
Yeah.
We have been ramping up fairly uniformly across the quarter.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, we do hiring throughout the quarter, and campus batch, of course, comes once or twice a quarter, depending on when we are taking them on board for the training.
Sure, fair enough. Sure, thank you.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Debashish Chatterjee for closing comments.
Yeah, so as we focus on the execution of our 4x4x4 strategy, we will strengthen our position by targeted investments, both organic and inorganic. And the investments will be in building domain strength in industry groups and specifically in healthcare, increasing our geographical presence, strengthening our alliances and partner ecosystem, creating our unique culture and work ethos, envisioning and embracing the future of work. We will continue to invest in these critical competitive advantages as we work to lead the organization through the next phase of growth. As we enter FY22, we remain very excited about the momentum that we have, the positive impact we are making for our clients, and our future-ready talent base. We aspire to deliver double-digit growth in FY22, along with 20% plus EBITDA margins, and creating long-term value for our stakeholders. Thank you, stay safe, and be in good health.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining the call today. And as always, we look forward to speak with you in the coming months. Stay safe. You may all disconnect the lines, please.
Thank you. On behalf of Mindtree Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you all for joining. You may now disconnect your lines.